Hi again then guys, and welcome to of course another circuit tune for Gran Turismo Sport, in particular this time for the Nissan 350Z, and not quite as high a class as you might expect. Typically I tend to use cars like this in either the same class that they begin in, which in this case is N300, and sometimes lower it. That is what I've done here. I've reduced it to N200, and the main reason why is because in N300 you already, thanks to update vehicles, start to get into some pretty serious territory, even with stuff like Porsche GT3s. So it's a good car, but is it going to really be that good? Not necessarily, whereas in N200 it could potentially be a very good car, and in the case of this one I would say it is a very good car. Now as far as the upgrades, of course, and this is a common question, you do not have to tune this to N200. My tunes as far as circuit racing are just a guideline. You can rebuild it to any class it can go in if you want to, because it's more about the handling than anything else. The performance in terms of straight line power and even the gearing, that's up to you. You can change that if you want to. This is just, as I said, a guideline or a canvas to work from. Now as far as the power, as I said, it is in N200, so we've tuned it to the peak of that level. The weight is dropped as far as it can go, and of course balance of performance changes these anyway, which is why I said it's more about the handling. As far as traction control, I've got it turned off. That's down to you, of course, personal preference. We've got sport soft tyres. Of course, racing tyres are quicker, but as I've said before, if you can make it good on sports tyres, on racing it will be even better. Whereas if you build a car just to use racing tyres and then use sports, it could become a lot worse than you'd think. It really does work that way around sometimes. As far as the suspension, we've got the ride height on 115mm on the back, 105 on the front, and the only reason for the difference is because it's naturally different. As you can see, the lowest is 105 compared to 95, so it's to counteract that. As far as the frequency, we've got that on 2.15, then for the anti-roll, 7 on the front and the back. For the compression on the dampers, 65, which is reasonably high, 92 for the rebound, neutral camber. It is rear-wheel drive, so of course you could give it some camber if you want to. I personally don't think it needs it. It's already very stable. And as far as the tow, we've gone neutral. Downforce pretty obviously doesn't apply for this one. As far as the diff, I've personally got halfway on initial torque and the lowest acceleration and braking. And of course, the diff alone makes a massive difference to the handling of any car. So if you have a personal preference, or if you just want to experiment with other things, by all means, of course you can do that if you want to. And finally, for the gearbox, I'd recommend, of course, the fully customized transmission, an auto setting of 124, which is actually very low, but the reason for that is because it allows you to mix up, as you can see from the stats, 5.8 on max speed with 4.1 on acceleration. So a very good mix of both. 3850 for first gear, then 2550 to 1650, 1378, which in other words is all the way to the left for 5th gear, and 1070 for 6th, with a final drive of 3.51. I personally, again, find that that's more than good enough for N200, but if you tune it up to N300, N400 or beyond, you will need to make those gears a bit longer to get more speed out of it. So that's it for the tune. Of course, as always, there's tons that you can change if you want to, and if it doesn't work out, you could just come back to this tutorial and do it again. So, as I said, that's it for the build. What then about how it compares to my other circuit tunes? Well, it compares very well, actually. It's not the fastest thing out there, but to be honest, I wouldn't have expected it to be. It's not quite as quick as something like the Greddy Z or the NSX that I built in N200, but it is actually quicker than the DC2 Integra, also in N200. That's pretty good. I didn't necessarily expect it to be that good, so it's reassuring to know that this car can be that competitive despite being pretty heavily detuned, whereas in the case of something like the Integra, it's quite the opposite. It's a very heavily tuned vehicle. So overall, in terms of lap, as you can see, I'm running just under 2 minutes for this one. That's pretty good. It's not, as I said, the best thing out there, but it certainly means that if you are a fan of the 350Z, you can definitely use it. You can use it in career mode, you can use it in lobbies. As far as balance of performance for daily races, of course, that'll depend. It comes more down to the handling then, and the power is whatever the game forces it to be. But that's it for the tune. Of course, give it a try, see if you like it, hopefully win some races with it even as well. And if you want to check out my other circuit builds, drag builds, speed builds, even drift builds, then click this playlist on screen to see all of those. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.